Hello, beauties, and welcome to your weekly business breakthrough. This training is all about what to say when you're terrified you're going to offend somebody, how to speak out during this important and transformational moment in history. Reverend Michael Beckwith is calling this moment a lightning rod of awakening. I mean, when I reflect on what has been happening over the last few months, we were shifted into a global pause because of this pandemic, right? And because of that global pause, human activities have slowed way down. The ocean is so much more pure and clean. The sky is clear. We can feel the vibration of the planet. And as the earth is healing and it's detoxifying, we boom, all of a sudden have this opportunity to look at the death of George Floyd as a shift in mass consciousness. It's almost as if as the earth was releasing the toxicity, we were clear-headed enough to actually see something for what it is, an act of absolute oppression, hatred, and something that absolutely has got to shift. And we've never seen anything like this in history. The Civil War, the protests that happened in the 60s, they were much smaller scale. They were much more geographical based. Like, this is a worldwide movement. This is a mind-blowing, important time. And I'm pointing at you chose to come in for such a time as this. So do not try to back out of this. This time is for you. Do not squelch your voice simply because you're afraid of offending people. It's more important than ever to stand out, to step up, to speak your truth. So my goal is to give you a couple of tools here today to move through the emotions that you might be feeling and to step into the leadership of truly knowing that your job is only to say what's yours to say, and to even help you consider what is yours to say. So here's the thing. There's a couple of places to look. Number one, as a leader right now, it's more important to listen than to be talking. Now is a time for deep listening. We just hosted like a 2-hour-long forum for my clients in my year-long programs just to get to hear each other's stories. I heard stories of women who recounted what it was like to teach their son at a young age, as soon as that young boy could drive, that if he got pulled over, his job was to put his eyes down and his hands up. I can't imagine that being the first thing that I learned when I got my driver's license. But many women in my community had been teaching their children that exact same thing, especially the women of color who had sons. Women in my community were saying things like, in the past, I've heard people make racist comments and I said nothing. And now my job is to speak up. We heard stories of women in my community being held face down in the mud, raped. We made a space to listen to each other and to share what's been hard, because in that listening is healing. And so if you don't know what to do, if you have a client who is a minority or of a different ethnic background than you, now is a great time to ask that client if that client has experienced racism. Now is a great time just to listen. How has this affected you? Now is a great time as a leader to not feel like you have to have all the answers. Now is a great time as a woman leader to orient toward our sense of purpose in a humble and committed way. Now is the time to bring as much compassion and patience to yourself and others as possible. So the first thing I'd like to ask you is, what is yours to say? If you are a spiritual mentor, your job right now might be to help people orient toward all paths ultimately lead to truth, right? What if no religion actually outweighed other religions? If you're a business mentor like me, I see my job right now to empower women leaders to honor all walks of life, to honor minorities, communities that have been marginalized, to make those people feel welcome in their communities. If you are a wellness mentor or a health coach, now might be a great time to let your community know everybody is welcome here. Now might be a wonderful time to talk about how when we treat our body temple with care, we then can treat the world with care, right? That it's our job to create health and vitality in this incredible body temple so that we can go out there and bring compassion to all those who have been oppressed and marginalized and been victims of pain and dreadful circumstances. Now is the time to find the very best words that we can to speak out on behalf of everybody belonging. Now is also the time to care so carefully and deeply for yourself that you can continue to bring your gift. Now is the time to learn self-mastery so that you can walk out the door every morning feeling powerful. You can sit behind your computer every day feeling powerful and empowered to make a difference. Now is the time to learn how to master your emotions so that you don't get bogged down in grief, depression, frustration, right? Because these emotions will stop you from doing your work on the planet. But that's not to say that these emotions are bad or wrong. These emotions are necessary. So I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to the emotional scale, if you haven't seen it already, simply as a tool for moving through the crap, the crud, the frustration, the grief, the anger, the rage that comes up in times like these when the planet is literally detoxing, is literally like sloughing off that which is no longer working. So I don't know about you, but I've moved through a lot of these emotions in the last week. You know, we've canceled a launch. We're re-engineering the different phrases that we're using as a company. We used to have a whole program called Rock Your Tribe. I want to honor everybody who uses that word with honor and respect. I come from a background of studying with Native Americans and studying with shamans and doing vision quests out on the land. And so my intention has always been inclusivity. However, I no longer want to choose to use a word in my marketing that might offend somebody. I want to go so far in the other direction that those who have been oppressed, their cultural way of life annihilated, what can I do to make up for that? What decision can I make to go in the other direction? Right? And so, you know, we're changing our marketing to be more inclusive. Has it always been easy? No. Has it always been comfortable? No. The conversations I'm having with my team, not always comfortable. And I know what I'm going through it's a glimpse of what some of you have gone through in the past weeks, months, years. And so we have to learn how to move through this stuff. We get to learn how to move through this stuff. This is the emotional scale. This is a version of the emotional scale. You can find out more about the emotional scale by following Esther Hicks, the work of Abraham, wonderful teachings on the vibrational scale. This scale of emotions is based on vibration. Scientists have literally hooked up humans and human brains to electrodes to study how high are the different vibrations when we feel certain emotions. What is the vibration of these various emotions? Now, there's a couple things about this to pay attention to. When you are in fear or depression, you're at the bottom of the vibrational emotional scale. And guess what? In order to work your way up, and that is really the goal, right? We're not going to go from fear and anger all the way up to joy. That's just not going to happen. That is not how it works. So this is what a lot of people call spiritual bypass. When we think we can just skip these emotions and, we're all one, everything's rainbows and butterflies, right? That is not how it works, right? They say if you really want to learn to love humanity, learn to love every member of humanity, especially the ones that you wouldn't normally extend yourself toward, right? So In order to work ourselves up the emotional scale, you're probably asking yourself, how do I work myself up the emotional scale? Well, notice there's an emotion on this scale that is the link between some of the more negative emotions and some of the more positive emotions. And that emotion is contentment. Interesting perspective. What is the one emotion that you think Westerners are probably the least comfortable with? Maybe contentment. I don't know about you, but I wasn't taught to be content as a child. I would say that of all of these emotions, most Westerners are probably least comfortable with contentment. And that might be an overgeneralization, and I apologize if you may perceive something different. But one of the things I've noticed is in various religions, there are a lot of icons and symbols of contentment, like the Buddha. In Buddhism is like this content, happy Buddha. When I was traveling through Indonesia, I saw Ganesh statues everywhere. Ganesh is a super peaceful dude, right? In a lot of the Western world, where some of us were raised in the Christian faith, myself included, we have Jesus on the cross. I say this with total love, not very content, right? That just, all judgments aside, all religions are welcome here in this community, by the way. But all judgments aside, Jesus on the cross is not a content symbol for us to be absorbing as we're on that spiritual path. And so my argument here would be that this is something we choose to train ourselves in, cultivating contentment. We do that through meditation. We do that through loving one another, being out in nature. What makes you content? Do more of those things. Because here's the thing, when you're stuck in frustration, rage, anger, if you can move toward contentment, that's your gateway to hope, happy, passion, right? And guess what? If you want to spend more time in joy, which I know we all do, one of the gateways to joy is to get on purpose. Beings all over the world report feeling a sense of joy when they're being well utilized, when they're having an impact, when they're making a difference, when they're on purpose. And so once again, my point is, now is not the time to minimize your voice. Now is the time to be on purpose. Now is the time to recognize when you're feeling anger, grief, sadness, frustration, and to love yourself into a sense of hope. Because once you feel content, you can then access that little sliver of hope. And all you need is a sliver of hope to then continue to work your way back into that place of being able to get on purpose. Because we all know when we're stuck in frustration or overwhelm or angst or sorrow, it can be really hard to do our work, right? It can be really hard to sit down and get to work. So the whole goal is, how do we get ourselves aligned so that we can be of the most use, of the highest impact every single day that we choose to be alive, right? We become channels for the gift that is coming through us. It is our job, our opportunity to keep this channel clear, to be in our power, to be in our strength, to not ask for it to be easier, to ask to know our own strength so we can get out there and make the difference that we are here to make. Now, there is one more little hack that I am going to tell you that I move toward when I find myself stuck in frustration, angst, sadness. And that is that I move toward this energy of boredom. And I'm going to say this in a kind of non-PC way. I even develop like a F it mentality, right? Just like, F it. Nothing matters, right? I'm just going to lay this all down for the night, and if this thing's going to work out, the universe is going to show me. And if it doesn't work out, I'm just going to go do something different. I'm just going to move to an ashram and just let this all go. It's the most liberating thing to actually destroy and recreate my business in my own mind once a day if I need to, just as a path of detaching and not taking it all so seriously, and getting some psychic space between myself and the outcomes so that I can then come back fresh, right? So when you are stuck in these lower emotions, your job is to work yourself up. If you are feeling terrified, paralyzed by fear, depressed, One way out of that is to do an anger release. Did you know that anger actually travels along the same gateways in your body as creativity? One of my friends is an acupuncturist, and he's studied Eastern medicine, and they study the channels that she travels through. And he showed me in his textbook that anger actually travels along that same pattern of energy as creativity. And so if we're suppressing our anger, we are also suppressing our creativity. Can you feel it? So we've got to move that energy, express that anger when you need to, move yourself into angst, into frustration, and then into that, F it, fuck it, right? Let it go. And then we can start to access a place of more quiet content. Everything's going to be okay. I trust this moment. I have everything I need in this moment. I have everything I need in this moment. And then all you need is a sliver of hope. All you need is that one little sliver of hope to start to access happy. And I am now resourced enough to get on purpose. I am now resourced enough to write the words that are going to go on the website. I'm now resourced enough to give this another try. I'm now resourced enough to make another video, because I know being on purpose is my path to not only my own joy, but the planet's joy. Because you, my dear, beloved sister, you are here to make a difference. I think back to meeting one of the beloved teachers at a girls' school in Uganda. And this teacher was one of those teachers that always had 5 or 6 or 7 students in her lap. This was the teacher who everyone in the village knew if there was a child that wasn't getting cared for, or a child that had been abandoned, that they could bring this child to this particular school, because this teacher would not allow that child to go unclothed, unfed, uncared for. This was an open-hearted mama African teacher in Uganda who changed my life when I was sitting there having a discussion about rape and violence against girls, and, wanting to learn because of the fundraiser that we had just done. And this teacher stood up, and her words were being translated because she doesn't speak English. And the translator was sharing that what she was saying was some version of, my heart breaks for every young child who has been a victim of rape or violence. But my heart breaks more for the perpetrators. My heart breaks more for the perpetrators of these crimes, because they are the ones suffering the most. And so I wrap up this training with a reminder that it is our job to bring the compassion the world needs right now, to stand for inclusivity, to stand for compassion and love, to stand for being anti-racial, right? It's needed now to stand for the new normal, the new way, the new space for voices to be heard. This is our time. This is our chance. We're not the villains. We're also not the victims. We can't be. We have to be the women who claim our voices and get out there and make a difference. We also do not need to be the sheroes. We do not need to be the heroes. Our job is to be authentic expressions of the truth that we are here to bring. That is our only job. That is your only job. Your job is to be you. Your job is to be yourself. Your job is to bring your heart. Your job is to speak your truth now, at a time when your truth is most needed. Voices of love, compassion, inclusion, voices of everybody belongs. That's what's needed. And if this video has supported you, would you be willing to share it? It would be my great honor to support any woman you know who's on a path of leadership right now, because remember, we are all in this together. And until we meet again, your clients are waiting for you. They're not just waiting for someone like you. They're actually waiting for you. You. I'll see you out there. Mwah. And if you got value from this episode, I invite you to hit the subscribe button so that we can get you weekly business trainings in your inbox to help you grow your impact and your income the women's way. Head over into the Women Rocking Business Sisterhood Facebook group and introduce yourself there, because women go so much further when we go together. Just click the button to subscribe, and we will see you on the other side.